I've been looking forward to this one, Matty. I can't wait to get started on this episode because of all we've talked about recently. I think there's just a lot of anxiety and stress out there about the future.
The future scares people for a few reasons. One, we are terrible predictors of the future. Look at the Mayan calendar. Look at Y2K. I remember where I was. I was in Jeff Gordon's house in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he went downstairs in the basement and flipped the breaker, and all the power went out. And hundreds of people in this house just started screaming. They thought Y2K happened. It was amazing. It was one of the funniest practical jokes I've ever been a part of. But I remember, we didn't know what was going to happen. If you look at the Jetsons, if you look at Minority Report, the designer of the interfaces in Minority Report said if he knew that everyone was going to gravitate to what he designed for what the future would look like, he would have taken it more seriously. Which I just love that. But you look at modern car interfaces, you look at every movie that predicts what the future looks like. We have these virtual reality glass screens with all these dashboards. It's like Salesforce in the future, which is terrifying.
All of that is going to be so cool. Let's get started.
I love it, baby. All strings attached. It's automatic, like how we laugh. I'm working for you. I'll break my back. I love it, baby. All strings attached. It's automatic, like how we laugh. I'm working for you. I'll break my back.
Hello, I'm Rick Militaw. Welcome to Engineering Brand Love, where we introduce you to exceptional leaders that leverage technology and creativity to do great things in the marketing industry. Today, we have Matty Ayers, founder of Tiny Wins, the world's first feeling studio, working on feelings for Salesforce, Slack, Activision, Visa, Playboy, CBRE, Samsung, Stanford Health, Ferrari, Disney, and a lot more. And the truth is, Tiny Wins and Matty, over the last years, and his colleagues have joined us at this company. So, Matty, welcome.
Hi, happy to be here. Happy to be at the shipyard too. It's always a privilege and a joy to jump into any room with you. So just happy that we're here.
I think you are a true engineer of brand love because it's talking about technology, talking about the future, talking about how we build feelings and how we build bonds. But I took a line from you and titled the whole episode that. Let me see if I say it right. It's not how you feel about the future. It's how the future feels. Did I get that? Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did. One's left to chance and one's designed. And part of our practice is making sure that as we think about what the future actually feels like, that we're taking into account that over a large swatch of time, humans haven't really evolved feeling wise. We have an emotional set of systems that run in our subconscious, whether you study Jung or Nietzsche or any of the great philosophers, they all agree on the fact that subconscious is dictating how the world, how we view the world, the realities that we create, and the way that we show up in the world. And so we just want to make sure that as we are designing and predicting how the future feels, that we're taking into account that humans are evolving in the way that we interact with the world, but not in the way that we are ourselves.
It's really interesting what you just said. 3 times you said the word design. Design for you is a big word, isn't it? It's not just, a designer doing something, isn't it?
Design isn't everything that we do. It's not. Design is a series of decisions that create an outcome, whether that's visual, verbal. We use design in verbal language, but whether you are the roads that we drive on, the cars that we sit in, the tires that we use, the clothes that we're wearing, the phone that we're holding, the charger that plugs into the phone, the spaces that we walk into, someone had to make a design decision. And when those are left to chance, you get a suboptimal experience. When you consider everything, when you're designing a hotel, the scent, the fabric that's used, the drapery, the thickness of the carpet. If carpet's too thick and you pull your suitcase on it, the thing fights you all the way down the hall. But if the carpet's too thin, then your feet hurt. So somebody had to make a decision that got that right. Is it 0.3? Is it 0.5? Is it 0.7? The density of the foam to make the thing feel considered. And so one of the things that we say is that design is the application of applied empathy. It's the decisions that let the person know that you thought about them before they got there. We've seen Apple became very famous for the unboxing of their products. Johnny Ive said that they took the materiality, the subject matter, the way that you unboxed an iPhone, the way that you touched the button and it turned on and greeted you, they applied as much thinking to that as they did the hardware and software itself. And so design is everything. It changes how we feel about an experience, an event, a place, a moment. It also changes how we feel about ourselves.
Design is implied empathy. Wow, I love that. Well, you're saying in a superlative way, it's intention. It's intention. And you see the creator's intention. And either you see the creator's intention that they thought about me, or they were really lazy in their intentions, right?
100%.
What does all that have to do in the digital world, you think?
I mean, no more is it more evident than when you get into digital interfaces and digital design. The people that took the time to design the dashboard differently. The difference in a well-designed interface is the difference between an invitation and a nuisance. I have to do this versus I get to do this. Ugh, I have to log into this software and fill out this form, or, oh, wow, that was a really delightful experience. That's design applied to technology. We're starting to see really unique digital experiences because AI is letting everyone with their imagination, vibe code, if you will, create things from scratch. We're starting to see more imaginative interfaces. We're starting to also see interfaces that disappear. Why are we logging into things when we can just use query or text or voice or just chat with something and it does something on our behalf? So we're actually starting to see technology evolve and go away from design systems. They're still very important. We use them every day, but we're starting to see people start to question what software's purpose is and how design is going to impact the way that people interact with that. So we call that interacting with interfaces. Like, what happens when you don't need an interface? And then if you're going to have one, it might as well be beautiful. It might as well be delightful. It might as well be human. These are just decisions that we have to make.
That's really interesting. So done right, it's a joy. Done right, this thing that might be a task, might be my journey to get something, or certainly to get information or to buy something, is in itself not just the thing I'm going to get, but an absolute joy in the process of getting it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best designers in the world have spent their entire life designing wayfinding systems. How do you navigate around a airport in Europe? How do you figure out when you're in a different country what the road signs mean? Those are design decisions that you're having to communicate to a large group of people that may or may not be familiar with the place that they're at, the thing they're being asked to do. The same thing applies to digital. When you think about the way that we design interfaces that anyone can use, not just people that are excited to be there. And so that's why I love design, is you're having to make decisions for everybody, but take care of different groups of people that have different purposes for being there.
What place does design have in the future? A future that all the narrative is about technology, how we're going to reach folks, targeting, data. What place does design have in the future?
Design creates the way that we interact with the future. It brings the future closer to us. People are now designing things that were science fiction and bringing them into the modern age. And so I would argue that design makes the future tangible. So, and a lot of times we're having to debate what is possible versus what is practical. Some companies are going into they're not worried about the practical, they're worried about what's possible. Other companies, because they have shareholders and they have to get returns, and they're looking at, well, how does this impact my bottom line? And they kind of want it to be cool as well. So we're always teetering between the possible and the practical. and the future lives somewhere in between. It's like we always talk about, to be really good designers of the future, you have to have one foot in prophecy and one foot in history, because everything that we do kind of recreates itself. It evolves, it takes on new shapes and new forms, but they're based on, practical human behavior. And so navigating that thin line is really, really important. Scott Galloway, I believe it was him. He said that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And so when you start to think about how design impacts that, it's creating opportunity for everyone. It's also making sure that anyone that interacts with something has an enjoyable experience or can do the thing that you're asking it to do. And that's just genuinely how design impacts the futurization of things.
Great design is considering prophecy and history. Is that the way you just said it?
Yeah, prophecy and legacy, the future and history, the already but not yet. These things, there's always a tension there. It's a dialectic state. We live between two realities always. The future lives somewhere in there.
You think of a real example, either you, us, someone in the world really nailing that, understanding legacy and prophecy and what they did?
I think the work that we did for Joby sits in that. The Wright brothers had their right idea. They got a plane up at Kitty Hawk, and it changed the way that people perceived what it was like. We took on the form of a bird. We could go from point A to point B through the air and not be stuck on roads. It was a magical invitation.
Yeah, tell us what Joby is.
Joby is electronic helicopters that is changing the way that urban travel and transportation will be done. So imagine that you land in LAX and you need to get to the Staples Center. Instead of sitting in an hour and 37 minutes of traffic at rush hour, you could land at LAX, be on an electronic, an eVTOL copter, and land at the Staples Center in 12 minutes. So you save an hour and 30 minutes and you're flying through the sky. You're getting a different perspective on a city, which is really, really cool. And eventually they see it costing the same price as a black car. It's like, imagine that you landed at LAX and $144 later, you're at Staples Center. 15 minutes later, you're walking into the arena to go have dinner and watch a game. It's pretty amazing.
It's hard to imagine, dude. And it's and as you imagine it, you have fear as well as excitement, don't you?
The future is scary because, as I've said, we're really horrible predictors of the future. Like we thought the Jetsons would happen in the 80s, and then we thought it would happen in the 90s, and like, well, it's got to happen in the 2000s if Y2K doesn't kill us all. And then we just the future's scary because we don't know. We kind of have an idea of what it'll be like, but we have no idea. And so we future trip. We think about the future and we're like, oh, it's really scary or it's really unknown. And anytime that people are dealing in unknown realities, they will apply their life to that story and freak themselves out.
So in helping people know how the future feels, is that also helping people not fear?
I think there's a healthy amount of fear. There is a right amount of fear, like looking at tales of the past of being like, yeah, we shouldn't end up here. Like no company should run head deep into an Enron scandal. You know what I mean? Like we know how that story ends. So we have to look at the past because we're like, if we do this, we will end up here. It's also translating and saying, but what if we did this? What if we tried this? Has anyone ever done this? What would it look like if? We use a phrase called imagine a world where, and we let our clients fill in the blank of a desired or a dream state for an experience, for a brand, for a product, for a website, for an activation. Like we start with imagine a world where, and for Joby, it's imagine a world where you land in LAX at 5:00 in the afternoon and you're not stuck in traffic for 2 hours trying to get somewhere. You're there in 12 minutes. That's a really cool world. Like, let's do that. And then what does it look like? Like how much money, how much time, how much energy, what are the legislation? Like what has to change to allow that to happen? And then you got to get everyone on board. You got to get your investors, your shareholders, the market, public perception, red tape. The future is not just something that happens. It takes a lot of work. And if you just stumble into it, it's probably not that great.
Yeah, I think about it. Imagine a world where a city is more of a joy than a burden.
100%.
That's how it feels to me, because we all think that the great cities, we're going to go. Oh shit! How long is it going to take from the airport? Where we're going to go? How we're going to travel? What a hassle! And you know, it's like obviously the cities have outgrown humanity. And so isn't this about what you just said? You just said empathy.
Yeah, for thousands of years, we lived in tribes, right? It was about the village. It was about survival. It was about making sure that me and my 50 are safe, that we're happy, that we're thriving. Relationships existed inside those tribes who used to have a culture of repair. If you had harmony in the village and then you had disharmony, people really quickly moved back to harmony. There was either a duel where someone died, or we got back to harmony very quickly because we had to coexist and live. Now we live in a culture that we block, we unfriend, we move away, we ghost, we don't have those conversations because humanity has evolved. Now we live in these huge cities of thousands, if not millions of people, and we're having to consider what time does my flight land, because that's going to impact the experience that I have when I get there. If I land at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, that's different than if I land at 5 o'clock on a Friday. And so for some of these things, the future is about making the way that the world has shifted around us more comfortable, more energy, more exciting, and more thoughtful. It's that applied empathy.
Yeah, I really love what you just said. This idea of empathy in the future and reducing fear in the future. What are you excited about the future, and what are you scared about in the future?
I think though we are still trying to figure out systems of how to regulate our central nervous systems and control how our body feels. We were never meant to have this much information, this much access. You wake up every day and it feels like every day something crazy happens in the world. People, like, you talk to your grandparents, or a couple generations above you, and like they would go weeks and months without a catastrophic event. They'd go weeks and months without knowing that anything in the world had changed at all. And it feels like every single day things are changing. And so I think like humans are going to have to figure out how to plug in and out of the matrix, if you will. How to We're going to have to really focus on when I think about what the future feels like, for me, it's like right now there's as much chaos as there is possibility. And so like, how do you move through life in a way that the world feels less chaotic and more hopeful? Like I'm a delusional optimist. Like I'm going to always adventure on the side of like, well, what happens if it goes right? Which sometimes can be like, I have to be pulled back towards the middle, but I have friends that are like, they live on the far opposite side of me. They're just like, did you see the news this morning? And I'm like, I didn't. I was drinking coffee and sketching something on a piece of paper. What happened?
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not going to.
Or I don't want to know what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me.
It's
Don't
like,
tell me.
they're ready to drink at 9:15 in the morning, and I'm like I'm like 6 coffees in. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, let's not talk about that right now. The future is an exciting place because humans are going to be able to do stuff that we've never even dreamed of. Like you look at like some of the stuff that Musk is doing around Neuralink, or now that we are a connected society, Starlink is giving us internet anywhere. Joby's giving us flights that get us through, urban chaos. People are setting up these wild experiential festivals in the middle of nowhere because they can now get, power and transportation and solar and energy out there. I mean, we're going to be able to create things that have never existed. I think you're also going to see people go back to the fundamentals of basics for what made life good when people didn't have that much. And you're going to see an over-index on people looking at IRL experiences, connecting in real life, doing things together that are experiential, and staying away from just being online all day. If all you do is influence and connect and purchase and shop and consume, the world gets pretty boring pretty fast. So I think you're going to see a I think you're going to see a future that's actually kind of more human than we've had in a very long time, because people are going to crave that.
I have so many things going through my head on everything you just said. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I think we're almost exactly 30 years apart in age.
I was going to say 22, but 30 works.
Yeah, I'm
you know,
proud.
I
I'm,
you know, I
I'm proud to
never
be
asked you how
here.
old you are. You're not supposed to ask people how old they are. I don't think. I think that's like, it's not supposed
Well,
to
see,
do
if
it.
I say my age now, they'll know yours, but I'm willing to say it. Am I
Yeah,
right?
that's
Am I right
cool.
to say it?
All
Yeah.
right, we'll say it on
I'm,
three.
I'm going to be, I'm 66.
I'm
I'm gonna be
38. So you've only got me
60
by I'm gonna be 28 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 67
They grow up
in
so
July.
fast. They grow up so fast.
No,
You know,
I'm really slow at growing up. I'm
some
so
people
epic
some
slow.
people grow
I'm
so
epic
slow for how old they are. I mean, yeah, there's both. You know,
But you know what? I was the youngest in my family, so my dad had me close to, my mom and dad had me close to 40. So he was born in 1919. So he had the Depression, and of course, we all, Jewish family, we all had World War II, and we had various things happen. You know, when you said they didn't live with catastrophe, of course, there was epic existential catastrophe. And when I think about the stress now, except that, and I'm a studier of history, I'm so happy you talked about history as it relates to the future, history, the prophecy. I haven't heard you say that before, dude. I really, really like that, because we have these unbelievable periods of time on our planet or in humanity. And we do come back to harmony. Unfortunately, it could take two people's lifetime to get back to it. So that ain't so, that isn't so relevant for the people living in that freaking misery, right? But we do, I really liked what you said. We do always come back to harmony. And then you said it for this. All our anxiety about AI and all, and I'm also old enough where everybody told me everything was going to screw us up. You know, cable, the internet, social, the media, sir, it was all going to, you know, we're done, you know, no more humanity. And it did connect us more. And that's what you're saying. And even with this stress everyone's talking about, we can land in harmony. I think that's what you said.
yeah. I mean, people told us that TV was going to kill radio. And they were like, "Well, radio's dead; it's gone." You know, TV killed the radio star. Well, actually, now we got Sirius radio, and you still have traditional radio. There's
And
like
audio in general,
and podcasts and audio, and Spotify now has Joe Rogan, and they got all these things. Apple Music's do like now people just sit on mics like this and have conversations, and we find that to be interesting.
Well, we'll
It's
see.
great.
I'll check the
well,
numbers too.
the three people that have listened to this are going to be they're jazzed about it. They're like, I learned something. That's amazing. These guys are great. Sign them up.
My wife.
Yeah, my mom. She's my.
We'll
biggest
find
fan.
out.
Exactly. I'm like, Mom, you got to stop listening to it. I've seen the numbers are still in the teens. So,
and they know a unique user. They know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how'd you get into all this, man?
My got a wild story. My grandfather was a golf course architect. He designed and built golf courses. Had no formal training, just kind of figured it out. Bought a piece of land and built a 9-hole golf course in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, outside of Winston-Salem. And my grandmother was an artist and a stock trader. My grandfather would give her a little bit of money every month, and she would invest it. And so they lived a very peaceful, cool life, kind of lived it on their own terms, did what they wanted to do. In high school, my family my dad had inherited some of that money, made some bad decisions. I go to college. I go from being, a upper middle class to extremely poor. I built a website for a dentist. He took a chance on me. I took a chance on him though. I let him put his hands in my mouth. I didn't read the Yelp reviews. You can't, you don't know. I took as big a chance on him as he took on me, but he let me build his website. He didn't even ask to see a portfolio, which is like, I should have questioned his decision
What would
making,
you
but
show them?
I don't know. Someone else's website, I guess. I'm
Maybe
like, look
he
at this
knew.
one. Look
Maybe
at
he
this
knew the
one.
answer to that,
Yeah.
Matty.
I'm like, look at this website's great. Did you do that? Absolutely not. Never done it before.
That's awesome.
But I went into his office every day for 3-4 weeks, showed him what I was doing, and then I'd go home and watch like lynda.com tutorials. This is like pre-YouTube. This is early 2000s. Built his website. He loved it. He threw a launch party. He told people I was a web guy and a marketing guru and genius. And I'm like, that's a little too much praise in my direction. But like 8 other people called me after that party and wanted websites too. So I built one for a brick maker and a cake lady and a dress, some this place called the Emporium that did like bridal dresses. And before you know it, in college, I was getting calls from like the BMW Performance Center. I was in Greenville, South Carolina. They're like, "Hey, could you come in and meet with us about our website?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Built Clemson admissions website. Built a couple other crazy projects. One thing led to another. I kind of have made it my life's mission just to never say no. My favorite professor in college said, "Yes is the answer. What is the question?" I've kind of just lived my life that way. I'm not really afraid of the future because I'm like, none of us know what we're doing, and everything in life is figure outable. And so have just kind of said yes to thing after thing after thing, and then got my feet and found people that were smarter than me to come build things better than I could, and grew a studio out of that spirit of just saying yes. And have been in rooms that I never thought I'd be into, and gotten to work on some stuff that still blows my mind to today. And just keep saying yes, and just seeing what happens. But yeah, I have a very unconventional path to where I've gotten. I'm an artist. I like to paint, I like to sculpt, I like to draw. I think the best design in the world is just really beautiful art applied to how humans are going to experience things, and then convincing people in the room that the decision that you're making is the right decision and we should just try it. That's the spirit of how we kind of approach anything. And I have partners that are very practical and analytical and look at the behavioral psychology of why people do what they do. And like I've been fortunate to partner with people smarter than me, and just keep saying yes. So it's been fun.
What would you come up with on how the future feels? Maybe I need to give you a subject for that, probably. Or
I would just say, like, how do you like? I would start with, when we kick off a project, we do the discovery and we ask a bunch of questions, and they're different for every client. And they come, we go through all their background documents and their decks, and like we put together this this framework. But we have one question we ask every client, no matter what background is, and it's, how do you want to make people feel? So if I was going to design the future, or like tell you what the future looks like, I'd get a bunch of people in a room, and from all different backgrounds, various economical views, job things, like whatever, different walks of life. And I would say, what do you guys want the future to look like? How does it feel? And I would see what bubbles up and what surfaces. What's interesting is, by answering that question, they would also tell you about what's going on in their world today. Because a lot of times, if you wanted something, some people would say, I want the world to feel exactly like my world's so good right now, I just want the future to feel more like that. Other people would tell you that they hate the way the world feels today, and we've got to do something drastically different. But I would always start with, how do you want to make it feel? And let's start there. Because if we can align around some surface area, then we can move forward in designing the future to feel like that, which is just really fun.
there's so much of me that would answer the same. I love the way I feel. But then, as a student of history and as a person, coming of age, so to speak, I do keep wanting the promise of all of this to bring us together as a world. And then I feel like we do it. Communication we can have with each other, the way we touch each other. Do you feel like sometimes it's humanity that just gets scared of that and pushes back? I do sometimes. I think that's why we see these cycles of xenophobic or embracing. love between,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
also, there's a lot of us. We're all having different experiences. I was sitting in a restaurant last night having a conversation with one of our clients, and we're sitting in this really cool spot in West Hollywood. It's called Laurel Hardware. We're back in this like glass area where we can see the inside of the restaurant. We can see the whole outside. The outside's gorgeous. We had a really cool vantage point. And I looked at him and I was like, how weird is it that every single person that you see out here is having a completely different experience?
Right.
And they're in their life, they're the most important character in the story, and they brought their story here tonight, and they're experiencing this place. And he was like, I've never thought about that. He was like, is it so weird to live in your little esoteric brain all the time? And I was like, yes, it is. But also he was like, dude, that's such a good point. He's like, every single person here is having their own reality, their own version. And so I think like when you start to realize there's like billions of us and we're all having different experiences, different realities, there's a lot of stuff that we can control. There's a lot of stuff that we can't control. I think, like some of the dinner parties I've been having, people are having a really hard time with what's happening in the world because for the first time in their life, they feel completely out of control in what happens next. And they like the reality is setting in that like they're they're creating their reality, and there's also things beyond their control, and they're having to wrestle with that. And it's creating some existential dread. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting in the fact that like we are all trying to figure it out. There's no playbook, there's no rule book, and there's like obviously societal rules that are applied on top of us, but like the majority of people are just winging it. And they get to the end of an experience and they're like, did I like that? Was that cool? Was that fun? Do I want more of that in my life? It's kind of like when you hear music that you've never heard before. Do I vibe? Is this do I like this? Am I adding this or am I not adding this to my favorites, to my library?
Yeah. That's how I always felt about the evolution of data. So many folks, frankly, that have platforms, data platforms, talk in this technical term. And I always thought about it the way you said it, Matty. We are all complex, You
Yeah.
meet someone and, that's their role. And you might meet a few things, but, it's thousands and thousands of signals of complexity inside us. And the only way I would learn anything about that complexity is to, shut up and listen to you and ask some things and
Sure.
really be leaning in and asking, right? And the only way I would prove to you or show you, or you would see that I listened is I said something that was relevant and touched you based on who you are, your complexity. I always think data should be, we're living in a world where you can actually understand that for millions and millions of people. And thus, we should be able to touch those people. We should be able to touch those people better. And maybe we've met that promise. Maybe we got a journey to go. I don't know.
There's a couple things there. I think one, people have to be willing to be received.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a conversation where you're like, that person just like stuck, they didn't really want to be known or to know, we just interacted with each other, right? So like
they went on with the
doesn't-
rest of their life after I said hello.
Exactly. Or they were, I mean, like, listen, like I'm so technologically tapped in, I have a hard time being present. It's something I'm actively working on. Like, how do I make people feel when I'm I can make somebody feel great via Slack, via text, via voice note, phone call, like whatever. But like we're so technologically tuned in that we have a hard time just being human in a human setting. And so like working on that, I think you're going to start to see people really move towards lives of presence. They're going to be, we're starting to see it with like people putting limits on how much they can use their phone, and people like when they walk in their house, they put their phone on a shelf and they don't touch it the rest of the night. And they're having to teach people that after 6 o'clock, they're unavailable. Like I've had to have people be like, hey man, just so you know, if you ever message me after 7 p.m., you're probably not going to hear from me till the next day.
Right.
We used to live in a society where you would mail a letter and 19 weeks later it would show up and it's like, to whomst it may concern, my love for thee has grown. And now we're like, yo, you up? Like,
yeah.
like,
Are you finally up?
and we expect an immediate response. Before it was like, it's like we'd go months, and it's like, my dearest Gretel, I was thinking about you this morning as
my wife. I love dearly, in case you listen to this, but she does expect a text return within moments. Man.
moments. It's like, Rick,
I don't like
I,
you.
dude,
Oh
I'm
my
hearing,
God.
I'm
You
hearing
don't
Karen's
care
voice.
about me.
I'm hearing Karen's voice in my head. It's terrifying. Holy shit.
She is awesome.
I'm gonna text her
Tell
back
her
right
how
now.
awesome she is, just in case she hears.
No, she is the best. I'm gonna text her back right now, just in case. Like maybe she texted me and I didn't even know yet.
Hey, I'm looking at the scene here. People can't see. So what do you got behind you there? There's that painting. What's the painting behind you?
It's a painting that says "Never Seen Before." It's one of my favorite paintings. It's just the glasses and the hair, and the mouth is open and all the stuff. Then this is a painting that I made. I saw this piece at Art Basel. It was like an Iranian princess holding a pair of red scissors. I painted the painting I put a banana in it because last year the banana duct tape to the wall was the highest paid piece there. So I just combined the two and made my own. I think we're all beg
I
bargains.
understand. You got an art piece for Basil, but you painted a banana on it. Did you just say that?
I got inspired by a piece that I saw at Art Basel, and I put a piece from a previous Art Basel inside of the painting and made something new. Everything is a copy of a copy of a copy. I mean, we're beg barring and stealing design and art, and we're learning.
I agree with that. All right. It's time for Love Notes. In Love Notes, we will riff on some of the industry's most recent events and trends. Here we go. Amazon has agreed to invest up to $25 billion in Anthropic, on top of the $8 billion that it has poured into artificial intelligence startup in recent years. As part of the announcement, Anthropic said it's committed to spending more than $100 billion on Amazon Web Services technologies over the next 10 years. Amazon said that it expects to shell out roughly $200 billion this year in capital expenditures, with most of that money going toward AI infrastructure. What do we think that's about?
I mean, there's people that believe that the money's just doing this, right? So I invest in Anthropic, they buy my services. There's folks that say that we're just seeing an AI hype cycle and money is being passed in a circular between 5 or 6 companies. There's people that are saying that people are strategically placing their bets. We've seen it from Apple, we've seen it from Amazon, we've seen it from Google, we've seen it. You're watching the great technological readvancement. It also creates fear. We talked about fear in the episode. People are worried that it's just a select few that are making decisions, and the rest of us are just getting access to what those folks are doing. You look at AWS; they're invested and involved in anything. You're like, I don't know, man. If AWS goes down for a few hours, watch how much stuff in your life doesn't work, right? So it would make sense that these large web companies are investing in frontier models, building their own, picking, begging, borrowing, stealing the tools that they want to use inside of their workforce. You're also seeing deployment strategies. You're seeing companies that are saying, inside of our models, you can click a button and turn on whatever tools you want and just make it work for everything. So it is smart. You're seeing a divestiture of capital into these frontier models. I think what happens next is we're obviously going to see companies start to make their own. We also are starting to see companies like Apple say that in the future, LLMs are going to run natively without connectivity to the internet on your phones. You're going to see these models that work offline. So the queries,
what does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean?
You're going to be able to shrink the entire version of the internet to an offline mode that runs with or without service, so that you can have access to the entire world knowledge infrastructure in real time, and they will run on device. So they won't have to hit the cloud to then come back and work. They'll just work, which is really exciting and cool. So we're also starting to see companies invest in offline infrastructure for AI tool sets.
I think it shows me Amazon is once again the winner. I mean, I think from a practical standpoint, you have by far, of course, the world's commerce company, and nothing touches it, right? They have the cash and ability to make this investment. And I always keep thinking about what's going to happen to the LLMs. How's it going to get monetized? I hope they don't screw it up with suddenly, the narrative gets changed by pay, which of course is what happens to search. Search is shit. One of the big reasons we're left with the the white space for the LLMs to succeed so fast. I don't know if you agree, is because search is crap. It's all paid. It's not a narrative at all. So, and Amazon, of course, is the example of one of those things where customers just have joy shopping in Amazon. So any sort of integration of that seems to me to be a home run. And it actually gives me some hope on all of this. Actually, I just think Amazon's a home run. I think it's a great move. All right, here's the next one. Tim Cook. You mentioned Apple, so Tim Cook is stepping down as Apple's chief executive after 15 years leading the iconic company, with longtime Apple hardware executive John Ternus taking the reins as the new CEO in September. Company announced on Monday. I remember when that Steve Jobs would say to his successor, before obviously passed, Tim Cook, own the job for yourself. Don't do just what you think I will do. But I don't know what we think about this, and not that he may take our advice, but we got any advice for John on that?
Oh man. Some people say that Steve made a mistake in having Tim come on board. I mean, Twitter's lit up this week. It's like some people are like, well, he took it from $340 billion market cap to trillions. Some people are like, it's one of the greatest successes of all time. Then you got people on Twitter, they're like, well, if you look at the actual annualized growth, it's underperformed. And they list 12 companies that have not had the growth rate that Apple has had. I think no matter who went into the role after Jobs, they were going to fail. I mean, like, fail. It's like you're replacing one of the greatest visionaries
Relatively fail.
Relatively to like, I think no one could have done that job. It's like, it's
but
hard.
he did better than the successor the first time.
I mean, you're holding an iPhone in your hand.
Jobs
so
left better, right? Better than the first time Steve left the job and that successor. So I think I give him a thumbs up.
I think if you look at where Apple has struggled, true Apple fans have said the hardware's done nothing. We haven't seen innovation. We get a slightly better camera and a battery that lasts a little bit longer. And then every time they announce a new phone, the old phone starts to die. Let's sue them, right? I think he has an incredible track record of building really amazing things. I think if you think about the future, hardware is going to dictate the way that we interact with our software. I also think software is rapidly changing. Apple's going to have to decide what their view on that is. People are saying that the App Store is going to start to go away because everyone's going to have personal apps on their phone and just be able to load in their own apps. And so Apple's going to have to morph with the times and figure out what their revenue structure looks like in the future. But I think leading from a technological hardware perspective puts them in a position to monetize everything. And if you look at the ecosystem, people have always said Android has, there's more features, there's better tools, it's whatever, but Android doesn't have all the ecosystem. And so when you think about protecting the ecosystem, hardware becomes the tools that the ecosystem is experienced by. They've announced they're working on security systems and home devices and all sorts of things. I think hardware leads us into an AI reality, whether that's wearables, whether that's things in your phone that are in your home that are smart. And so I think it's going to be an interesting move. Some people think the bar is low for John to come in and just absolutely kill it. Other people say that Tim is the greatest successor that could have ever had. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm excited. I've got more Apple devices in my home than anyone should. I'm an Apple fanboy, have been for years. I use Apple stuff when I don't even need it. It's like I want it. I want it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'll always have. And
Well, I think that point, I think it's not about John, Tim, or Steve. If you can navigate and will navigate in this environment, you're a winner. And I do think all of those other judges about short-term return or, navigate in this, grow in this situation, win in this day. And, that's a winner. And that's what I'd give them. Matty Ayers, you are truly an engineer brand love. You are completely vested in technology. And you look at it, as you said, from prophecy and history. And then you look at the world through design, and feelings is the fuel of love. So I don't know I could come up with a better example. Thanks for joining us today.
thanks for having me. And I hope the future is what you want it to be.
I love it, baby. Our strings attached. It's automatic, like how we like.